What is going on, kids? And welcome to the second episode of Meet the Critters. Today we are going to be focusing on the American Yorkshire. But first, before I get into that, I popped on a little bit early, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about where I want this podcast to go. My main plan was originally it was just going to be full content on whatever animal I'm doing. Well, that's definitely not happening. So we're coming into this episode a little bit of clearer mind and a better understanding about what's happening with it. We are still every week going to go ahead and break down a different breed of animal a different breed of livestock. But also, I'm just going to give you guys updates on what's going on around here. There is always something going on. I didn't realize how busy I was until I started the YouTube channel, because then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can film that, and I can film that, and I can film that. And we got a lot going on between the shop and just building around the farm, animal-wise and structure-wise. I am busy nonstop. So this week has been a huge week. We started the main build of our slaughter floor behind our garage. Up until now and continuing for a little while longer, I've just been doing everything off the front of a tractor, which it works, but I'm not a gambling man, and I've been gambling a long time with that. It's going to be a lot safer and just easier on me in general, moving stuff around and just dealing with whole animals. So they have poured the concrete, which came out amazing, drain right in the middle with a little bit of a slope in it. So that way everything just drains right out. And they've been all the rest of the week, they've been bringing in material, leveling everything out. And just, it's been an absolute transformation. We've had a lot of trees that kind of broke over the winter. They helped us clean all that up. And it's my neighbors are the ones that are doing all this work, and they are just fantastic people, and they're doing a great job. So it's been crazy running around doing that. We now have water right next to the shop, which is nice, running off a frost-free hydrant instead of running 150 feet of hose to the garage every time I need it, which in the wintertime, that gets a little aggressive. That's a lot. There's a graveyard of hoses next to the shop of all the ones that have just blown up over the winter. And well, this is a little news on both sides. We actually put one of our breeding gilts that we had into the cooler this week, and I just put her in the freezer today. She was a good pig, but she wouldn't get bred, and with the way feed prices are, I'm not really looking to carry something over, and we had a buyer for her. So she went in the cooler, and her meat quality was great. She was a little smaller than what I would have liked. It just kind of put further into perspective what I had already decided, which was a good idea to put her in the cooler. She had a little bit of a limp, which she's had from somewhat of a younger age, and getting in there today and actually breaking her down, I saw there was definitely some scar tissue in the knees, in the back, and it could have just been an accident. It could have been genetic, but I didn't really want to take the chance on that as well, of if it was genetic, it getting passed on to the next generation. For those who didn't listen to the first episode, I'm pretty sure I talked about it. We raise Hereford pigs. We just bought a boar about 2 months ago. He is a 50-50 cross of Mangalitsa and Ossabaw Island hog. So I love the Herefords. They are absolutely fantastic, super hardy critters that just, they look like friggin' bulldogs, and they put on great fat content, but also like really good marbling. It's not just a super fatty animal. There's intermuscular marbling that is fantastic. So we are taking that and we are crossing it with the Ossabaw and the Mangalitsa boar for a couple different reasons. Ossabaw Island hogs are great. and again, I'm going to do a whole episode on this, and I don't know if he's listening or not, but my buddy of mine who raises them will be on this podcast talking about him, whether he wants to or not. But they are just super hardy critters. They don't get as big, which I'm not completely upset about, but the meat quality on them is absolutely fantastic. Very dark red color and just an amazing fat. And they do share a lot of the same traits that you will get also out of the Mangalitsa, except the Mangalitsa is just a little bit bigger. And they are the pigs, if you've ever seen them, that are just completely covered in hair. They look like sheep pigs. It's crazy. But we're looking to take some of the qualities of both of those, like the hair, to have a little bit more protection over the winter. We're planning on doing spring and winter piglets, and raising piglets over the winter is not always the best idea, just because we've got a couple of weeks out of the year that are just completely freezing, like a couple of weeks out of the year that are in the teens to the negatives. And keeping piglets in that is not always fun and somewhat counterproductive. So that will be our experiment for this year. We still have one gilt that I am crossing my fingers, and all the signs point to her being pregnant. So we are expecting piglets in August, which again is not a great time to be farrowing, but this is my first year, so we're going to make it work. We're not going to look at the downsides of everything. We're just going to try and figure it out. We do have 3 Herefords coming from the same farm that we got our previous Herefords from. And I'm hoping for all gilts. I know I'm at least getting 2. That way I can kind of pick who's going to replace the one I just processed and who will be added as well. I'm looking to keep over probably 3 sows and then end up also selling piglets in the spring. But again, we're going to see how all this goes, because at this point, I don't even know, but we're having fun with it. So, but yeah, so that's a little bit of just going on up here, and we're just in the process of, I'm mentally in the process of getting ready for fencing. Lots and lots and lots of fencing, but it is a good thing. I do enjoy it. But it's a lot of work. We're hoping to do about 6 acres of woven wire and electric. So it's going to get fun, but you'll get updates on here. There's going to be videos on my YouTube channel as well. And again, we're going to be putting out a ton of content. Like I said, I'm busy now. I'm going to be double as busy, and I'm still putting out at least 2 to 3 videos a week. And I originally thought I was going to do like 1 a week, hopefully. So, but other than that, not a lot going on here on top of that at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and start getting into the episode. So this week we are looking at the American Yorkshires. So these pigs are essentially, I don't have a picture ready to be pulled up right now. I promise I will get better at that as well. If you've ever seen the movie Babe with the pig, that is a Yorkshire. They are the most depicted pig in everything. If you're thinking of a pink, like adorable little pig, that's a Yorkshire. They are the most popular breed in the United States. They started in England in a town called Yorkshire. There's a bit of a debate actually on that. I forgot to write down or maybe I did. I sure didn't. The other town that they question that they came from, but I guess it's like a small debate. But they were bred in England for a long time. And the main breed that those came off of was the British large whites. They look very similar. It's just they've had a bunch of attributes bred into them. They were exported into the US and Canada in like the 1830s. But so much into Canada at one point that they were the biggest exporter of Yorkshires in the world. And this was again in like the 1830s to the 1890s. When Yorkshire did come into the US, they had a big insurgence in Minnesota and Ohio. The first registered Yorkshire boar was actually from St. Paul, Minnesota in 1893. And that one was actually imported from Canada. I've worked with these pigs a bunch. It's the pig that everyone gets, or is the most decent starter pig. They get big. In a lot of the research I was doing, they were calling them a medium breed. I have a little pushback on that. Yorkies get big. Sorry, I and a bunch of people call them Yorkies. It's just a fun little nickname, and I don't have to pronounce Yorkshire all the time. But they're really good producers. Like, they pack meat on. What did we do? We did 3 Yorkshires last year. We got from a spot that I probably won't buy pigs from again. But these guys were good. We got them at 2 months old, maybe a month and a half. And they were already probably, I would say, close to 30 pounds. And they were good. They did really well. We did kind of a pseudo regenerative kind of rotational thing last year. It did get stomped on pretty quick because we did end up getting 2 different ages of pigs, which is tough. We got our Herefords at like 6 weeks, and they were about this big, and our Yorkies were already, again, 30, some pushing 40 pounds. So that's not always the best thing to start off with. So we did end up separating them, which kind of shot the regenerative farming in the boot until this year. But they really do produce well. We got them in May, and by October, we slaughtered them in October of last year. Big Mama, who we called her, was 286 pounds hang weight. She was a biggin. But they are some of the best meat quality out there in the same way. Like, they are a production pig. They are one you really don't have to worry about putting on weight and putting on fat. They're just going to do it. But the nice thing about them is the fat is not intermuscular. Like, take like an Ossabaw or a Mangalitsa. Their fat cover is just that. It's a fat cover. They have amazing back fat, but the chops themselves are very, very lean, which, again, that's been bred in over time. Like, over the generations of generations, like, they've pushed it to where it's like, all right, now we have a pig that we know we can get to 220 pounds in like 6 to 7 months pretty easily. They also have longer bellies. Like, if you look at, I don't know, just look at a Hereford. A Hereford's kind of a stout and kind of shrunken a little bit. They have decent bellies. But then you look at a Yorkshire that's the exact same age, and they're going to be probably at least 10 inches to 12 inches longer than that animal, which, for those of you who don't know, bacon comes out of the bellies. So the more belly, the more bacon. So that's another main reason that the Yorkshire is the most popular breed in the U.S. Bacon. And I completely understand. Let's see. Let me just look at my notes a little bit here. So the nice thing about Yorkshires as well is they're like a fairly decent proportional sized animal. Like, yes, their bellies are longer, like I just said, but proportionately, their legs fit that, their shoulders fit that. So they're a good hardy breed, but they're very active. Like, it's tough because Yorkshires are a super versatile breed too. You can raise them out on pasture and they are fine, or you can stick 3 of them in a 15 by 15 pen, which people do, like, but you can get a pig to slaughter weight and have decent fat on it in a 15 by 15 or 20 by 20 pen. I know people that do it. That's not my forte, but whatever works. But they have the ability to have that where it's like, if you are a very small farm or homestead and you're just trying to figure it out, I would suggest a Yorkshire for your first one, because you're going to get something. Like, you're going to get a decent animal. They're also just super docile. Like, mine last year were fairly docile. And I'm only going to say fairly because I was inexperienced in raising pigs. Last year was my first year raising pigs. I've been around them a bunch, but it's usually for about 10 minutes. And then I really don't have to worry about their behavior anymore because they're dead. So learning all of that, learning all the husbandry that went along with it, now I get in there and I can basically lay on the pigs I have now. Like, I could just lay right on top of them and they'd be fine. But the more work you put into them, the nicer they are. Like, it's like any animal. Pigs are super smart. Yorkshires are smart. But they love to move around. Like, if you give them room, they'll run around like crazy. We would bring in mulch bales and stuff like that for our Yorkshires. We do for our pigs now. We just, my neighbor dropped off a load of wood chips and just dumped it over the fence into the pen. And they were running around for an hour, running in and out of the wood chips. Like, they're super playful, super active. But if you give an animal more space to move, their meat quality is going to be better. Like, meat's a muscle. When you work that muscle, like, it gets better. Again, you can put something in a pen and just feed it everything and it'll grow and it'll get fat. I'm not saying the meat quality is going to be bad, but I would much rather have like a pasture raised animal, or not even pasture raised, something that has a decent area to walk around in over that. Males, and this is somewhat of an average. I've seen bigger and I've obviously seen smaller, but the males will usually get an average around 550 to 750 pounds for like a boar, or even a barrow hog, which that means like it has been castrated. It doesn't have his boys anymore, so his mind's off ass and it's put on grass. So yeah, so that's pretty good. Like, around 550 to 750. That's, again, if you're keeping a boar for a long time. Like, and the average on these pigs is like 10 years. Like, if you're growing a Yorkshire out for 10 years, he's a good breeding boar. I've been to a farm that had one that had to have been 1,000 pounds. Its snout was about this big, and it was in a like 15 by 15 pen that was many layers of chain link fence and pallets. But he was sentimental to the family and they don't want to get rid of him. So again, literally the saying, not my pig, not my farm. So, but they get huge. They really do. And the females are right around 450 to 650. Again, 650 is you have a sow that's been giving you piglets for the past 3 years, and she doesn't do anything but eat, sleep, and shit. Like, that's what that is. I would say the prime weight for most pigs. It depends on some of the more lard-bearing breeds. Again, it depends on size. For a Yorkshire, for say like a production style pig, like a Yorkshire, Herefords, Berkshires, Durocs, all that, if you can get them to about 220 hang weight, which is right around, I don't know, right around like 300 pounds ish for live weight. If you can get it to that size, you're golden. You're going to have really good pork that has really good fat cover, and you're just going to enjoy it a lot more. Again, I've cut up pigs that live weight or hang weight were like over 300 pounds. Like when I worked at the USDA facility I worked at, we'd get those in, we'd have to quarter them. Like we would have beef that were smaller than the pigs we were cutting that week. And we'd have to lower them down with the winch and break them into quarters. It was crazy. But the chops on them are huge. They look like steaks. They really do. I like pork. I like pork a lot. I don't like pork enough to have a pork porterhouse, like, because that's essentially what it is at that point. It's just a big steak. But no, so again, you can get most breeds to that size though. Like a lot of the production ones. And yeah, so like I said, they range from about 6 to 10 on like the maximum age range there. They are prone to like bronchial issues, pneumonia, and parasites. But again, that's kind of across the board with a lot of pigs as well. If you're keeping breeders, you definitely need to make sure you deworm them. Because again, they're just rooting through the ground, looking at whatever's in there, and they're picking stuff up. Especially if they're on a lot of the same ground they've been walking on for a long time, there is the risk of parasite load. But as long as you keep up with a good regimen of, I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get pulled down, but just a good anti-parasitic, you're going to be fine. They do have a little bit of a thicker hide, which I've noticed again. Some of my research was like, oh, they're great for cold weather. Yorkshires are okay for cold weather. Like when you look at them and they just look like a giant pink thing. It's what they are. They do have hair, but they don't have a lot. They're livestock. They'll do well just about, like, again, they do better than some, but I know others that do way better. That's the tough thing about any climate. They are versatile. You can raise them anywhere, but it's about the input you're putting into them and what you're getting out of them. That is very similar to the reason raising beef is really hard in colder climates. Unless you're just pumping them full of everything, you're feeding them to keep weight on them because they're trying to figure out how to stay warm. Obviously, having shelter and bedding and stuff like that is super helpful. But when it's 10 degrees out, they're still cold. They can handle it, but it's still pretty chilly. Yorkshires are often crossbred too, which I've got no problem with. I think F1 crosses are the way to go a lot of the time. The hybrid vigor when it comes from something like that is fantastic. And again, you would do that to basically put in all those attributes that I said before. Good, sturdy, a little bit of a longer torso, get that more bacon. And again, they're just the breed. They've been around a while and they do really well. Sows can put out about 10 to 12 piglets, which is a pretty good size. And it's a little bit higher than like the average litter size. They will eat anything. Anything you put in there, they will eat for sure. But again, we don't have compost. It goes straight to the pigs and they love it. They destroy it. All the eggshells, veggie ends, everything. We've got 2 kids. There is so much wasted macaroni and cheese in this house that it should be a crime. Like there is just noodles everywhere. It all goes to the pigs. All of it. There are a handful of restaurants that we get veggie scraps and things like that from. Another really good thing is raw milk. You can get raw milk from a lot of like smaller dairy operations, depending on they. Yes, Josh, they do eat like pigs. But you can get it super cheap, if not free in some cases, from some of these smaller dairy operations because they have to purge the tank every so often. And that is fantastic for pigs. It's a great source of protein and they love it. But along with just doing like a balanced diet, like you got to make sure like you can't just feed it sweet feed for its entire life because it doesn't have the calories it needs. Yeah, it has the sugars and stuff like that. And it's going to be running around. It's going to be fine. But especially if you are raising something a little bit colder climate, it needs the calories. It needs to have a balanced diet. They have really good feeds now that kind of wrap all that in. And you can do more research on top of it. A lot of actual mills, like the feed mills, you can go in and sit down with somebody and you can talk about them making you a specific formula that you would get in bulk orders. So you could order 6 tons of your specific grain that you have decided that you want to do for your critters, like because you think that's going to work for you. And yes, so it all depends on what they eat. There's a big argument in the pig world. There really is. It's like, oh, there are some pigs you can't get fat on, and then there's some pigs that it's no matter what you do, even if you starve them, they still gain 30 pounds of fat. I have seen so many pigs. I have seen Yorkshires who have 0 fat, and I've seen Yorkshires who had very easily 5 inches of back fat. Same with some of the lard producing pigs. I've seen a handful of Ossabas that have been super fatty, and I've seen some that have had perfect fat cover. Which is their concern for? Let me pop you up here. As pigs are omnivores, is there a concern of pigs cycling into ketosis with the wrong diet? I am going to be honest with you, Kevin. I am not positive on that. I apologize. I wish I could answer that. I will actually write it down, and hopefully you come back, and I will get back to you on that. Absolutely, because now I am somewhat interested in that. Oh, Nicole Barton's in there. Thanks for coming. So yeah, again, just the overall meat quality on them. They're just good pigs. They're the like Toyota Corolla of pigs. You know you're going to go and get what you're paying for. It's going to be a dependable pig that's going to give you a bunch of meat. So, yeah, again, they just got good fat quality on them. I have made quite a bit of lard from Yorkshires. It's just all good. They are really good for like if you're starting a farm because they are everywhere. The biggest thing is and I'm guilty of this. I'm very guilty of this. A lot of people go into it to the farming or homesteading or basically anything, and they do as much research as humanly possible, which is a very good thing. But they do the amount of research that if you don't have the skill set that you're already looking to do with the amount of research that you have, it kind of gets to a moot point because you have all these ideas and what you want to do and the breeds you want and how you want to do it. But you don't know how you're going to react when it's 14 degrees out and you need to deal with the water and something else is going on. Yorkshires are a really good breed to start that. And they're the Corolla of pigs. You get them for your you get a Corolla for your teenager to drive around and probably beat the shit out of at some point. Not that you're going to beat the shit out of the pigs, but you know it's going to get you from A to B. You know you're going to get something good with a Yorkshire, and you're going to gain the experience of being you're going to gain the experience of being a pig owner, because that's huge. I have gained so much experience in the past year to now I finally get to look at our program, look at what's going on and go, oh, okay. Yeah, no, I want to do this, this, and this. Now that I know that they do this, they respond to this, and they definitely don't like this. You could go off and build something that you think is fantastic, and every book you've read or every internet blog is like, oh, that's great. Yeah, no, that's exactly what you need to do. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't work. Like, you do whatever you need to do, and the pig's just like, I want no part of that. They are very smart. Like, not a lot of people want to give them the credit that's due. They are a very smart animal. And if they don't want to go, they won't go. You can actually see an example of that in one of the videos I put up this week of us putting that Hereford gilt in there. I moved a little too fast on closing the squeeze gate, and I got no movement for about 5 minutes until she bucked me off that gate. They're crazy strong, stronger than you think. And before you do it and before you have them, you don't think about it. You don't think about, oh, that gate will be fine there. They'll pop it right off. They will destroy everything you own. So that is one of the biggest things I would say to people is do as much as you can in the ways of fencing and just setting yourself up for success with pigs, and start with an easy breed. You don't want something that's going to be a certain type of feed or slightly finicky in this sort of manner. Like, just start yourself off on the easy level, because you're going to be a lot happier with yourself at the end. And Yorkshires are a great breed for that. More than likely, I'll probably end up with a handful this year. Again, they're everywhere up here. Again, they do just really well in multiple climates. I know people in California that raise them. I know people in Texas that raise them. And again, we've probably got 3 farms up here that do it. Let me just go over. And that is it for the notes. So I'm going to go ahead and say that is the end of the Yorkshire conversation. So is there anyone in the chat that has any questions or anything? Renegade Butcher over here. I think they would have to be on an almost no carb diet to hit ketosis, which is easy to avoid if you feed them more than trespassers. So yeah, that pretty much summed that one up. So yeah, I hope that helped you, Kevin. Nicole's down here in the chat. Absolute nothing tops hands-on experience. Again, I am learning all of this backwards. I learned how to deal with them once they're dead. And now, after 10 years of doing it, now all of a sudden I'm like, well, let's figure it out while they're alive. And it has been a super fun experience, but I would hate it if it went any other way. There have been ups, there have been downs, and it has been a roller coaster. But it's farming, and that's why we do it, because it's fun. I don't have any butcher gang signs, Josh. All right, we're in the country, the way country. Oh, except this one. So, anyway, we are coming up on the 35-minute mark. I think I'm going to try to keep these to around a half hour, because I think that's just a good round number, and just a quick listen for somebody if they're coming to work or if they're watching. Yes, mom tested. if they're just watching it on live, you can pop it on in the back real quick. Or if you come back and watch it, I appreciate you for sitting through it. Definitely a lot better than the last episode. Didn't stutter as much, and I'm a little happier to be here than I was last time. So I appreciate all you coming. I will post on Instagram probably Friday of next week what our next breed is going to be, and that is going to be in poultry. So we will see what that is. I think that one's going to be a fun category because there is an ungodly amount of poultry out there, and we're going to hit all the big ones first, and then start getting crazy. But we'll see. We'll see what's going on. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'm glad you got to meet the critter.